And I think that's what's more important to me, to like that people are honest about their skill set, not so that we don't give them more work or whatever, that we don't think they're good enough, but more so that we know what to expect. And there's an open communication so that we still give opportunities to freelancers that are working with us or animators that are working with us to get out of their comfort zone, try new things, and learn more styles of animation.
All right, well, Jorge, here we are for the last section of this workshop, and my head is about to explode, but I wanted to ask you, this was a huge project, no matter how you look at it. I mean, just the team was big and it was very ambitious. Was there anything about, the process, things you discovered, or about the end result that surprised you?
Yes. I think we talked a little about design phase, but one of the biggest question marks was, is this gonna feel like one cohesive video, or is it gonna feel like a montage with a bunch of different styles, which is not what we want. And I won't lie that the fact that it looks like one video was very surprising. Just because we weren't sure if it's gonna work. And in a way it was like, if it doesn't work, it might still look like a cool video, but it wasn't the intention. So I think defining those colors and that style and like an overarching look, if you will, that can be taken throughout the different styles and throughout the different shots, throughout the different designers, throughout the different animators, and make it seamless, it was surprising. Yeah, I'm shocked it worked, but I'm very glad it did.
Well, we talked about how you kind of did that, but it sounded like that was actually a learning experience for you and for ordinary folks to actually go through the process, having, obviously it helps to have Jay Quercy involved because he's amazing. But are there things like that, that you continue to do now that you use on other projects that you learned here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was, especially with big projects like this, where there's a lot of different shots and each shot has just very different approaches. Like it's not like every shot will be built differently, even if the style is the same. I think finding that overarching theme, whether that's through a color script or by making sure that your textures and elements look a certain way, is definitely something we learned in this project and that we applied ever since. Like color scripts have become something that Grace will spend a good time in to make sure that we can have it all correctly. And often we will just put all the style frames in one big board so that we can immediately see what's flowing, what's not, where colors are jumping, or what elements feel completely out of place. Yeah, I think that's definitely something that we learned from this project.
Yeah, that makes sense. Having that bird's eye view is always like super helpful. Do you have any shots or sequences that, it doesn't matter if you animated them or somebody else, that are your favorites?
Yes. I think just because it was fun and it was so short, I really like that shapes piece. And I know it's a weird thing to say because I animated that one. But it's just like that whole section, actually, like it's just like a 3-second section where like it just goes through like different elements and different motions and connecting each shot and connecting with the music. Like that's my favorite thing about motion, like grabbing these little movements that just fit, everything fit. The movement fits, the music fits, the feel fits. And I feel like that little section really accomplishes that, from like the little shapes, and then the shapes become the little water drop, and the water drop goes into like this wavy thing. And then part of that section is also the next 3D skateboarder shot, which is also one of my favorites, because it was one of those that like it really clicked the first board that we saw. Like when Loris explored this idea, I was like, oh, maybe we go from a timeline and the ball bounces and it becomes a skateboard. It was like, yes, like this is what we're looking in this project. And in some ways it felt like we're introducing that character too soon, but it was like, oh no, we can justify it because it's kind of like an echo of what's going to happen later. And just that unexpected little bounce, again, that matches the movement. Red circle becomes the skateboarder and then it goes down. There's just something little, it's like such a little thing that I think there's a little magic in it that I really like. So I would say probably that whole section is my favorite of the piece.
With shapes, sounds, design, and movement. When it comes to motion design, we believe everyone deserves the chance to move from novice to superstar. So we've created an online place for that to happen.
Yeah, I love that section too. And it brings up a question I wanted to ask you, which is, you had a lot of animators working on this and you had some insanely talented ones too. So, you had a pretty versatile group, but there's a lot of different kinds of animation in this piece. And there's things that I look at and I'm like, oh, I could totally do that. But then I was, for example, never great at character animation. And there's a good amount of that, especially in the back half of this. Do you sort of put animators into different boxes? Like this person's a shape animator, this person's a character animator, or you also worked with Claudio, who I know can pretty much do everything. So like, do you look for that at this level of work, the kind of stuff that you're doing, or do you still look at people as having sort of specialized skill sets?
I think one thing that I've learned, even working with more and more animators, is that one, it's unrealistic and almost impossible to find an animator that can do it all. And like that is like an all-around animator. And I don't expect that because I know how unrealistic it is. And I think the important thing is to learn that, animation is just so broad. Like it's just so broad. Like you can be an animator that can do shapey shape stuff very well, or character stuff, but not just character with like frame by frame, or character fluid, or character based on symbols in a smart way. Or you are someone who's very, very good at just After Effects keyframing clean stuff, or building rigs, or building systems. Or maybe you're someone who's like really amazing at comping, or you're someone who's really good at cinema, or not just cinema, rendering in cinema, building rigs in cinema. Like there's just so many little layers that 100% we look for people that can specialize in certain things instead of just an animator that can do it all. But often you won't know that if you haven't worked with them, because either you're an animator or you're not, sometimes in the freelance world. And maybe you'll do a bit of character in your portfolio, maybe you have a bit of both, but like what's your strength? And what we do with that is make sure that whoever we're working with, whether it's internally or is a freelancer, know how comfortable they are with a certain level of animation. And if they're not comfortable with a level, that doesn't mean we won't give it to them. Will just mean that we'll be, we know that this is something they've never done before, it's totally out of the comfort zone. So we just need to assume that it's going to take twice or 3 times longer to do that shot. And we'll just accommodate for that. And I think that's what's more important to me, to like, that people are honest about their skill set, not so that we don't give them more work or whatever, that we don't think they're good enough, but more so that we know what to expect. And there's an open communication, so that we still give the opportunities to freelancers that are working with us or animators that are working with us to get out of their comfort zone, try new things, and learn more styles of animation. And during that process, they might find something. They might find that they're amazing at doing rigs. And then next time we work with them, it's like, hey, this is going to be like, we need like 300 bumpers, and a rig like this will be great. So you did that last time for that shot. We think you'll be great for this. Or you did that shot in 3D when we didn't even know that you did 3D. This project is going to have a lot of that. You'll be great for that. So a lot of it is like giving the opportunity for them to try new things. Through that experience, know where they're good at for future projects. And if they're uncomfortable with something, give them enough time and have enough open communication from their side and our side to control expectations and work with different animators that way. But there's a very long answer to say, no, I don't expect an amazing animator to be amazing in everything. I just want them to be honest with me and work together towards things that we're comfortable or uncomfortable with.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of your job as a creative director, the person, I'm assuming, mostly making the decisions about which freelancer to hire, you basically have to be like a talent scout almost too. So that you can kind of, because I mean, to your point, you had some of our alumni, and even though we call them alumni, I mean, a lot of them are pretty experienced animators already, but they don't have as much experience as say you or Claudio. So you're always kind of right on the edge of, I'm pretty sure they'll get it, but they haven't done it. It's not on their reel yet. So that's cool to hear that that's how you look at it. I wanted to ask you something else. I think it's just kind of like it's like a cliche, but I think it's pretty true that projects are generally never done. They're just abandoned at some point. And there's always little, just little things that no one will notice. Like you called out a few in the workshop, colors don't match up exactly. The shapes aren't exactly the way Nuria designed them. Are there any things that you watch when you see the manifesto now that you kind of cringe at and you're like, oh, I wish we had another 2 days to work on that?
Yes, there's a lot. But I think especially in the shots that I worked on, I think it's always more obvious in the stuff that you've done, because you know exactly where you could have spent more time on. So like in that isometric shot, there's a billion mistakes that are hidden or like, half fixed and masked, which, even though there were some smart solutions there, there was probably a smarter way to build that. And there's definitely a few other shots as a whole that I felt like some of them flew in terms of motion from one to the next better than others. And I would have loved if every cut, every shot had that same level of flow, which is a broad, like it's not necessarily a specific shot, it's more like a broad comment. But if we were to go shot by shot, I could probably point at you, I don't know, 20 things for each shot or more. So, I mean, there's a ton of glitches. So this is gonna be interesting. But like even like little quality points like this, like that's a little thing that bugs me a little bit. Like the text, the geometry is not fully perfect. And like similar stuff like this, you can see like little things that don't quite line up here. And maybe the motion from this shot into the next could have been a bit more connected. Like right now, it kind of just feels like it wipes it and something was missing. This was kind of like we were trying to time it with the music, which made the pendulum start a little bit slower. Like maybe we could have made the music match the beat there a little bit better. Here, even though we talked about the edges, you can still see them here. Like they're not perfect by any means. Like even with the blur, but it was either this little pixelation or having an edge. And I was like, this is more tolerable than an edge that just breaks the design. Here are some cool smears if you look very closely, which I really enjoy looking. But there's still glitches, like the way that this connected to the part of the body and the other leg. They don't, like, it was like a shape layer, I think, that he pretty much frame by frame. And you can see that it's not quite perfect. Little things like this, little geometry, funny things that you don't really see, but you feel. This shot, there's 100 mistakes. Like in a way, like we were running out of time and we had to put all these elements, and like a lot of these are just particles of big shapes that are just going up. So we have very little control of what was actually being seen, just playing with the random seeds. And, like it didn't look like the style frame, which sometimes I cringe at a little bit. There's still little things in this shot, the comping, this shadow kind of feels like an odd drop shadow, and it's because of some shiny issues that we have. The textures here, like you can really see our trick very visibly here. So this shine is supposed to be part of this part, but it's just matte on top and you can see the trick and the geometry is not quite perfect.
This is actually amazing, dude. This is amazing because I honestly I think a couple of those things I've noticed, but like I noticed them just like almost subconsciously. Some of the things you're pointing out, now that you're pointing them out, I'll never not see them, of course. But it's so funny because this piece won a Motion Award and it's got hundreds of thousands of views and everybody loves it. And there's a lot of little errors, just things that never got fixed. You ran out of time, and that's how every project is. So I think it's actually cool to see that. And a lot of people might assume ordinary folk, every pixel is perfect. And I don't think anyone actually works that way. It's impossible.
No, and I just noticed an unforgivable mistake. Look at this. It's going from blue to black in one frame. That's embarrassing.
Oh no! Someone's getting fired.
That was probably me on the final comping. Anyway, like I'm still like the texture feel of this spheres felt like it just stopped too suddenly, and like it could have used a bit more love maybe. Like look at this. It doesn't even match the shadow there. It's like outside the circle. Unforgivable. Yeah, there's a bunch of little glitches in shots like this that it's just a matter of like if we had more time, we would find even 100 million errors. This shot that Victor kind of like ventured into 3D has a bunch of mistakes as well, which I'm sure he'll talk about. But like this was one of those, like, we've never really done a 3D character rig before, and all of a sudden he's going full ahead with this, and he killed it. And like a lot of these things were put on sale, but like we knowingly knew that we had a bunch of issues that we just didn't know how to fix, and he brute forced it frame by frame where needed. Yeah, even like little render issues here, like the geometries are not perfect, and maybe the particles are a bit too much in some ways. I would have liked if the sphere here, that this texture that we used, that was an echo from Francisco's shot, could have been a little bit more connected to the rest instead of just feeling like an echo of what we've seen. Like again, I said, there's a million mistakes in this, and if you go frame by frame, it would be embarrassing. But here you can see even like when they start slowing down, the rotation doesn't really work. The characters have a bunch of issues, like some of them move in a really funny way, like especially there's one guy. Like, what is this guy doing? Like, his foot is not even on top of the diploma. Like, his limb is just there hanging out, and like that was a lot of stuff that I didn't have time to fix. And then here I am shameful to admit that I hit a lot of stuff with motion blur, even though I hate motion blur. And then like I did like some very rough cell animation on my end, which is not my forte. So there's a lot of really chunky, crappy stuff here. The dragon shot was a nightmare, but I actually think with the time that we had, it turned out amazing. But if you look very closely, you will find a lot of mistakes. Here's the little snippet that I love. Giant Ant, Buck, Gunner, Oddfellas. This one is pretty straightforward. Actually, like you'll see what, or you might have heard when Victor talked about this shot, how it was built. And it's very smart built. And then lastly, this shot, I couldn't make it look like a style frame, and I still hate myself for it. There was a certain look that the ripple had that it was very unique, and it was more gradual. Like, this is the style frame, and this is the video. And I basically ran out of time. But I wish I could have found a way to figure out these ripples in a proper way so they don't look so weird and funny. Like, you can still see the white line there, and it's just not as clean as the style frame.
Aside from those 50 things you just pointed out. Last question, Jorge. What did you learn from this as a studio? You know, you were a young studio when this project happened, and you know, it's been over a year and you've done a lot of big projects since then. So what takeaways did you have from the School of Motion Manifesto?
Yeah, a few come to mind. One of them is that we should be aware of the danger that comes when we have creative freedom, because we go crazy. And in a way, that's not a bad thing, but it's something that, you know, ever since when we've had projects that have creative freedom, that's something I need to remind myself. Like, I'm just too worried that it needs to look amazing, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh shoot, we actually need to animate this and we need to make it on time. And I think this process helped us. It was like, okay, how can we at least understand what's going to happen later and be ready for it? Instead of like, oh no, there's 3 weeks left. We need like 5 animators to finish this on time. Like let's find them, but like try to figure out from the beginning, from the complexity of the style frames, okay, this is going to be a lot more work than we thought. And I think that's something we're still learning, but that was definitely a key learning from like a creative direction point of view. Is like, we can go crazy and we need to manage scope in a more realistic way so that this doesn't happen all the time. Another one was, I think, working like as a team, like finding ways of how maybe Victor can do a very good job of like leading the people that are in character animation because he has that knowledge, and maybe Greg can lead more like the After Effects-y people, and like it revealed a lot of strengths from within the team that are now used every day, which was really good. And then the other one was just like the importance of having an overarching designer that can be a lead designer that can lead the game, and like not having to be scrambling later on in the game for a color script, but like try to define those things early on and have someone that can just lead that thing. And Yeah, I think those three things that come to mind right now.